Hello, everyone. Welcome to our DEDI Community Conversation. I am Dr. Elizabeth Moore. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer here. I'm a Black deaf woman with glasses. I have short hair with highlights, a white blazer, and a black jumpsuit. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that Gallaudet in the Washington, D.C. area rests on indigenous lands. Those lands are specifically of the Nacotchtank and Piscataway nations. And of course, we also want to say that our students are our first priority, as always. That goes without saying. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Jeremy Brunson, who will explain to you how
grayish vest and brown pants. So, let's talk a little bit about the logistics for today. First of all, Dr. Moore and I will be sharing some updates about the work that DEDI has been doing, statistics, and relevant information about our programs and offerings. Once we conclude with that, you here in the room are going to help us answer a couple of questions that we have. So we'll have an opportunity to engage in conversation and address two questions that we will post into the group. And also we'll be offering some food to you all. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over.
framework. This inclusive excellence framework is actually utilized very heavily in our work as a division, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about each piece of this puzzle. We want to create a safe and welcoming community for our bilingual community members so that everyone in our environment feels comfortable to share their perspectives, their thoughts, their experiences. We want to ensure that those individuals feel like they are a part of this community, that this is their home. We also want to build equitable opportunities and outcomes where community members with diverse backgrounds can have full access and can take advantage of resources, engagements, interactions as a part of our collective community. We also look to build strategic partnerships across our campus. This is where we can actually build different ways to address and approach problems and find different solutions to injustice. The fourth puzzle piece is intercultural competency, and that is where we design programs and services where individuals have an opportunity to build their capacity on a variety of topics. That is to actually improve our intercultural competencies and ability to relate and have conversations with people across differences, because we recognize that our community is very diverse. The fifth piece of the puzzle is organizational resources. Through our partnerships, we're actually creating resources where individuals can take advantage and also strengthen our work with one another. As we think about those professional connections and building relationships with each other within our departments and divisions, we are actually able, as DEDI, to provide you with opportunities so that community members can, and this includes staff, faculty, and students, build up their competencies. The last piece of the puzzle is collaborative leadership and shared accountability. We want to ensure that divisions are actually engaging in the practices and doing DEDI work. So it's not just us delivering these presentations, it's actually every member of our community taking advantage of this, because we know our students are coming from diverse backgrounds and we want to make sure that we're ready to meet their needs. We have faculty, we want to make sure that as they're working in academia that they have safe classrooms and they also are enthusiastic about engaging in this work. And so the Inclusive Excellence Framework is something that guides our work. At this time, I will ask Dr. Jeremy Brunson to talk to you a little bit more about what we have been doing heretofore in the last few years. Dr. Brunson.
Once again, thank you, Dr. Moore. So here on the slide, you can see some of the offerings and programming that we have been offering to the campus community, one of them being unpacking bias and anti-oppression training, and inclusive excellence, the work that we have been doing within the DEDI to be able to provide this offering. So this unpacking bias and anti-oppression programming specifically targets the undergraduate population, which will also be expanded to faculty and the graduate school. We also have the Inclusive Excellence programs for students, staff, and faculty, Inclusive Excellence Ambassador that includes both faculty, staff, and students. We've been offering monthly lecture series, and the team works arduously to find special guests to bring new perspectives to the campus community and provide webinars as such. We have provided unit assessments for different campus units to assess their own respective units and look at the different dynamics within the staff and how those can be improved. We have also become IDI, we have been providing the IDI inventory, the Agricultural Development Inventory. All of our staff at DEDI have taken the IDI inventory to be able to become certified and competent. For the past year, since 2021, a number of changes have happened, and as we know, Gallaudet, nothing ever stays the same. We experience many changes in our office, just like Gallaudet does the world. I was hired as the Executive Director of DEDI. We also hired our new Project Manager, Christopher D. Johnson, known as CJ. We also changed the division name. Formerly, DEDI was known as the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and now is the Division of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusive Excellence. So it's still DEDI, however, it does include Inclusive Excellence, but the E is now part of the acronym. We have built collaborations across campus, which means that divisions can reach out to us, whether they want specialized training, an evaluation, maybe some coaching sessions with their staff, whatever it may be, we provide that new type of service and consultation to individual units. And we're building collaborative relationships with all units across campus. And I already mentioned the IDI. Our staff has become certified and ready to provide this assessment to those who ask for it. Again, this has been in process for the past year. The Inclusive Excellence Ambassador program, as I already mentioned, our Bison Circles, which are opportunities for us to come together and talk about specific relevant issues, whether it be race, identity, and have a space to come together and engage in those conversations. We partner with the Department of Public Safety and SARC to change our persona non grata or PNG program to a CAR program. We also coordinated with the community to have a healing ceremony with TAHT in the renaming of Building 103. Which is the Turtle Island and Hand Talk. So we have been able to get some funding from outside stakeholders. One specifically from a university that works with communities with disabilities to be able to attain and maintain employment. So we're able to refer some of our students to their programs to be able to learn about creating their own businesses. This is a 5-year grant. Our team has also partnered with CSD to provide training to their faculty and staff at the CSD school. Currently, we have planned a DEI Deaf-Centric Institute for this upcoming summer. We're also partnering and working with the President's Office for the DEIA Summit, which is the Belonging, Equity in Action Summit for the fall. As I mentioned, we've been partnering with different divisions across campus to assess their work towards equity and belonging that aligns with the equity and belonging imperative of the university. And as I mentioned before, we're also implementing assessments which are the frontline workers that are able to inform us on what is happening within each respective division. So this is just a sample of what the unit assessment looks like. And the assessment is respective to division. Faculty is different than staff, and they might have different needs, whether it be maybe student organizations. So this is not a one-size-fits-all type of assessment. It is catered to each individual division and their specific needs. The way it works, we provide the resources and materials to the division, and they are able to provide feedback about each of the domains, whether it be language use within the division, language use in text, language use, whether they're using ASL, ESL, English within those spaces. And then they're able to rate themselves. As you see here, we have 3 scales, the red and the yellow and green. Red means you're not doing so great. Yellow, you're in progress but not quite there yet. And green is that you've achieved that domain. And the goal is not to criticize the division in any way, it's to provide them feedback so they can move along this rating scale and improve themselves. We take all the information to the DEDI office, and then we meet with the leadership of that division to identify themes and give them more findings, and then support them in that process and journey of improving. And that could entail workshops, trainings, could be sharing a text or a book, or just as simple as providing some feedback to the unit about things that they themselves might have not realized and that they can implement and change. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the numbers in terms of the workshops and program offerings and the people that we've served. The unpacking bias and oppression trainings. You can see the numbers. We have the Inclusive Excellence Ambassadors, the Inclusive Excellence Student Ambassadors, the Trading a Page Together, or Biasing Circles, and the Restorative Justice trainings. So just a question about what some of these acronyms are. So that is the Inclusive Excellence Ambassadors Program, the IEA.
And this is for our entire community where we have gathered input. 3 years ago, We actually engaged in a process where we had key stakeholders join us, and we had a few key stakeholder sessions that we hosted. So we had an alumni session, because of course we wanted to include our alumni perspectives as well. We had a student session, and in that student session we actually broke it out by our Latinx community, Black community, Indigenous community members, Asian community members, and then we also had our FOCC, which is the Faculty of Color Coalition, representing our faculty of color. We also had student organizations involved, so we could ensure that they also had their input. There is a student of color organization, our LGBTQ community gathered as well, and also leaders within each of these organizations. We invited board of trustees to participate in these stakeholder sessions, as well as executive team members, so that we could engage and learn their perspectives, and that was how we developed our strategic plan. And we then did share that with the community. I don't know if you all recall 3 years ago us sharing that and then soliciting feedback. We didn't nail that down. It was not written in stone. It is a document that is a living and breathing document. We revise it as necessary based on situations that arise. Sometimes there are situations that we don't expect, and that then causes us to change the plan. But that plan began in 2020 and it goes to 2024, and so it covers 5 key areas. They are as follows: leadership and culture, mission and values, communication and education, policies and practices, and then finally, continuous engagement, which includes programs, resources, and support. Now, some of you may be thinking about, what exactly is leadership and culture? And I can give you an example of that. I actually serve as a consultant and host a monthly anti-racism session with the executive team. And so we have our division heads. This includes the provost, it includes our COO, our CBO, the president, the chief of staff. So they actually get monthly training where we discuss and have conversations. We will assign books to read, we watch different films, and then we have discussions. Jeremy and myself also have provided training to the Board of Trustees here at Gallaudet University. One topic that we presented on was intersectionality, and talking about the complexities of our community, because we know that we have such a diverse community and we have various identities represented in our community, and that's something that we should discuss. It's also been absolutely fabulous to have the support of the Office of the President and the Board of Trustees, which makes our job so much easier. It's absolutely critical in this work. Without their support, I don't know where we would be. It would certainly make our jobs a lot harder. Next slide, please. I want to mention several of the initiatives and collaborations we've had across campus. The first being the Louise B. Miller Pathways and Gardens, a legacy to Black deaf children. And this is a huge undertaking that was actually established through the Office of the President, but we are collaborating with different divisions. Our office is involved, as well as the Office of the President, the Center for Black Deaf Studies, Institutional Advancement, University Communications, our Chief Operating Officer, who specifically looks at the campus design and facilities aspect of this work. So they're creating the design and a space that will be located in front of the hotel, which is actually the former space of the segregated school for Negro deaf children here at Gallaudet. So we are actually having a space where individuals can reflect on this experience of oppression. And it won't be limited to just the Black deaf community. We know there are other experiences of oppression that we will also be able to honor. We are particularly, though, honoring the 23 Black deaf children and their 4 hearing teachers who enrolled in that school. And we also, in that effort, other cross collaborations across the campus, we work with our Ombuds office. We, as Jeremy mentioned, host Bison Circles, and that is where we have an opportunity to discuss individuals' experiences revolving around different isms. It could be about their religious background or gender, what have you. There are also several units that have partnered to work together to host our restorative justice sessions, the ombuds, the student accountability and restorative practices, or SARP offices, which is housed under student affairs, the Clare Center, as well, of course, as DEDI. And so being able to centralize restorative justice practices across our campus. We're also looking at improving the referral process, because we know that individuals, and even sometimes small groups or large groups, we may have an opportunity to host restorative justice opportunities for a variety of groups, be they large or small. We have the VD 101 course, which is a required course for our new students and transfer students, or freshman students and transfer students. This is housed under academic affairs, and we have been invited to teach in that program. So we will come in and do sessions on cultural diversity in that first semester. We've done that the last 2 years. Next year, we're going to be partnering with Student Affairs and Multicultural Student Programs, or MSP, to co-teach diversity sessions in the fall. And so that helps our students understand the concept of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm sure you all have heard of the new Multicultural Student Programs office that is now housed under Student Affairs. We work very closely with that office to better serve our student body with diverse backgrounds. And of course, these students are also coming to our campus, and we can recognize that there are certain gaps that they may have, and we want to meet their needs. Finally, we also collaborate with University Communications. You all have probably seen the MyGU posts and other platforms where we're posting on social media. We're very actively engaged with University Communications, and they do have a committee called the Communication Liaison Network, where there are different divisions who come together to share information on a variety of cultural events, dialogues that are being hosted, announcements that are happening for the various cultural heritage celebrations. I would like to, at this time, show you individual departments and their progress report that they have submitted. They normally submit 3 times a year, and that is when they can share what their division is doing in terms of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusive excellence. So it's wonderful to know how they are adopting DEI initiatives. And so I'm not going to show you their full reports, but I have selected parts of their reports to share with you this afternoon. This is our Chief Operations Officer, or the COO's office. And they recently acknowledged that they started with their top leadership within the COO's office, because their top leaders felt like they needed to become, how shall we say, more aware, to increase their awareness so that they can meet their staff's needs. And so they ended up doing a leadership salon where they were able to assess their own vulnerabilities and strengths based on their unit assessment. And then they could design training so that they could become better leaders, so that they could better serve their staff within their particular unit. So this was very well done. Now let's go to the next slide, please. Another division is the Office of our Chief Financial Officer, Policies and Procedures. And that is actually a part of the unit assessment. So in that area, you look at and assess what are your strengths. Are you supporting the deaf ecosystem, particularly as we think of BIPOC vendors, deaf vendors, LGBTQ vendors. And so up until this point in time, Gallaudet has had a history of hiring different vendors and different suppliers, but when we reviewed that list of who we had contracts with, they were mostly white hearing men. And so we wanted to improve that. We wanted to change those numbers. And so now we have worked very closely with the CFO to identify and rewrite policies that say we have to have at least 51% of our vendors and suppliers, and this isn't just through the CFO's office, but looking at across the campus, including the Clare Center, including my division. We have to look at who we're hiring. Who are those vendors? Who are those suppliers? Are they supporting our values of diversity? That is a value that we have, and we want to live that value out. So this is one example in the CFO's office, and of course, they write this report every 3 months on a quarterly basis, reporting on their results. We also have our Chief Bilingual Officer, the CBO's office. This is their EBI highlights. So you see the unit dimension listed here, products, services, and technologies. They recently established the Heritage Sign Language Center, which looks at serving multicultural families and recognizing that historically, as we think about ASL classes and who attends those ASL classes, it's often white individuals, but individuals of color don't necessarily have the same access to those types of trainings and classes. And so being able to look at this as a systemic issue and knowing that we want to be very creative in welcoming all individuals to our classes and our trainings. And so being able to have virtual options so that parents who are wanting to learn ASL, they don't have to worry about taking time off of work, but they actually in their free time can pursue asynchronous virtual options, and the whole family can be trained. So this is some of the work that the Heritage Sign Language Center is doing at this time. My God, it wasn't even established that long ago, but the statistics have already shown that we are actually meeting the need, and there is such great need. So they have been very effective in their work. Looking at the unit dimension of people, they actually have their Bilingual Experience Collective, or the BEC, where they invite individuals from different departments and units to come to the table to have discussions about the concept of bilingualism. And this aligns with Gallaudet's mission, because our mission states that we are a bilingual university. And so in the CBO's office, they don't want to have to worry about making decisions unilaterally or without input. And so they've actually invited the community to advise them on policies and procedures. They collect that input, and then they are able to set forth the various policies and procedures. So being able to vet things through the community and to have community engagement so that we can ensure that diverse individuals from diverse backgrounds have input to the decision-making process, which is very nice. So in institutional advancement, they are involved with the Louise B. Miller project, and they have been working diligently and very closely with all of us to develop their planning around our community and being able to engage our community in the $23 million project. That is the fundraising goal for the Pathways and Gardens, and that includes also funding for the Center for Black Deaf Studies, that total of $23 million. And so being able to expand the research that the Center for Black Deaf Studies is undertaking to share our narratives, to document our stories, being able to publish and create a digital archives here on campus, specifically with the goal of donating $3 million to the Center for Black Deaf Studies. And so they did receive a $3 million endowment. That was actually completed. And so now we have remaining about $9 million. And so IA is, again, very much focused on completing that fundraising goal and that total, working with GUAA, the Gallaudet University Alumni Association, and at homecoming they will be launching the public phase of the campaign so that they can then start to garner donations from our alumni and other distinguished visitors who may want to invest in the Black deaf community. And so IA thus far has actually successfully secured $3 million from Sorensen, as well as a $25,000 grant from, and this is a federal grant, the National Endowment for the Arts, or NEA. And unexpectedly, that came with an anonymous matching gift from an anonymous donor, up to $25,000, with the purpose of donating and supporting the sculptures that will be done of Louise B. Miller, who is the mother, and her son, Kenneth Miller. And Kenneth was actually originally declined enrollment from this white deaf school that was here on Gallaudet's campus. And so we are hoping that we will actually be able to also include in the memorial 23 desks and chairs representing the other 22 Black deaf students who enrolled in the original cohort of the Kendall Division II School for Negroes. We also have received a $500,000 in-kind gift from Edelman. They have been providing services supporting our communications around the project. And so they also worked on our webpage, revising the webpage for the Louise V. Miller Memorial. And at the same time, they're working very closely with University Communications to develop announcements and content that will be disseminated and shared with the community. And so we are greatly appreciative of Edelman's $500,000 in-kind donation. We also acknowledge that IA is still continuing to work on the Louise V. Miller project, and that will be one of their main areas of focus for the next year or two so that we can hit the target of $23 million. Again, we have $3 million that has come in the door. We are still tracking donations as they come in. University of Communications actually revisited their unit mission, which includes a diversity statement. And they wanted to make sure that they were reflecting the wider community that they serve, which is indeed very diverse. One of the interesting insights that they had when they looked at their policies and procedures was looking at their remote work policy and in-person work policy. And they came to an understanding that photographers and the videographers oftentimes physically had to be on campus, but individuals who were just writing copy could actually be at home. But they had to think about, is that fair, right? And so they were looking at who had the option to work remotely and who did not, and being able to know that oftentimes who were on the front lines were people of color. And so they ended up revising their work from home policy, and now it is much more equitable to allow all of their staff an opportunity to work from home or work remotely. And so they have righted an injustice that they identified in their unit. And again, this is assessing systemic oppression, right? So being able to use the unit assessment to look at the system and do something about it. So as we think about our policies, our procedures, our daily interactions with one another, what does need to be addressed? This is a very helpful tool because it allows divisions to become comfortable with recognizing these injustices and doing something to correct it. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to be able to do something about it and not just remain. I'm sorry, is there a question? Oh, can we go back one slide, please? I might have overlooked one aspect here, and I apologize for that. I do have a question about, where were you? Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for catching that. So under the unit dimension of informal systems, culture, and norms, in the unit assessments, they're able to look at what are the informal ways of being and interacting in your unit. So in a particular unit, you may have people who are of majority culture and people who are people of color. And what do those interactions look like? Are there cliques within your unit? Are there individuals who sign who aren't interacting with those who don't sign? So just being able to name those, to identify that, to make sure that your workplace is friendly for all individuals and that the fact that you're not marginalizing any one group. And so being able to make that shift, what they have done is they invite speakers to address those informal cultural norms that we may see in the workplace. And so again, that unit dimension is known as informal systems, culture and norms. Like there may be a norm in your office where individuals use spoken English or spoken language. But here at Gallaudet, we should really be trying to sign as much as possible, particularly when deaf individuals are in the room. And so that is a norm that you might identify from the unit assessment that needs to be addressed. Moving on to academic affairs. Here, they were able to acknowledge that faculty should be highly visible across the campus. But then they began to think about what about the individuals who are not faculty within academic affairs? It may be that those individuals don't have direct contact with students, and so they don't need to be on campus as much. And so they wanted to revisit their remote work policy as well, because there are some individuals who could have a remote day. Maybe that day they're working on service or they're working on research. And so they don't have to be here 5 days a week necessarily. Some faculty may teach 3 days and then 2 days they are assigned to research and service. But academic affairs wanted to make sure that they were being equitable as they looked at their remote work options. So looking at the number of remote and in-person employees, regardless of rank, and making sure that they standardize that across the board. In the unit dimension of informal systems, culture, and norms, they looked at their GLIDE program, which is a requirement for all graduate students, regardless of what their area of study is, that they actually have opportunities to work and participate and have cultural events that they can attend. And so they have opportunities to host workshops and attend those workshops, and that is a requirement for graduate students. It's actually coordinated under the GLIDE program in academic affairs. The unit dimension of environment, they look at the Center for Democracy in Deaf America, or CDDA, and that has provided a platform to our students to exercise their skills with debate and engaging in civil discourse. So being able to think about different cultural perspectives, different political perspectives, knowing that we have students coming from diverse backgrounds to our campus and our community, and we really are trying to strengthen their access to various platforms where they can express their views, their perspectives. There may be the 2 student teams that are debating each other. We invite other colleges and universities to debate us as well. Student affairs. Interesting to note here is that a part of the unit assessment is looking at informal systems, culture, and norms. And typically, where they have distributed opportunities for students to engage in cross-cultural events, but they don't necessarily do the same for their staff, right? So looking at creating opportunities for their staff within student affairs to learn about different cultural issues through training, through dialogues, through lunches, brown bread lunches. And so not just hosting these opportunities for students, but hosting these opportunities for their staff as well, because then the staff are more competent and can better serve our students. Within student affairs, they've actually set aside time for their staff and made it a requirement of their employment so that they are able to engage in these dialogues. Within student affairs, they have weekly staff meetings where they set aside time to discuss EDI topics, and they have partnered with us and invited both so that we can actually make sure that they are addressing these diverse topics. And we know we have to keep up with current issues, and current trends in the field. You all know that the world is rapidly evolving on a daily basis, and we have to keep up.
Now here is what we don't know. Clearly we're able to see, for example, 52% in 2022 were BIPOC, but from where? Are they from the custodial department, management? What are the roles that these hires have? The next area of identity, we have deaf, which is 88% in 2022. But as far as where they are, we don't have that information. So moving forward, we're trying to get a better idea as to the story or the context behind these numbers. These categories are important, but there are also other categories that are important which we don't have enough information about that we're seeking to get. Also, BIPOC is something that can be really broken down into subcategories. So, although it says 52% BIPOC, that can mean black, but that doesn't necessarily maximize the potential diversity that can be had there. So, hopefully, that's clear. Now we've reached the point where it's time to do the work and eat. So we'll do both. Please go ahead and grab a brown bag for your lunch, and then at one of the tables, discuss with those at the table this question. There are notepads and pens available for you to use, and if you would like to just list your thoughts, that's fine. However, if you want to list your thoughts and share them, we also will provide time for that to be done. So go ahead, grab your lunch bag, and engage with this discussion amongst your table mates. Oh, and keep in mind that there will also be a second question after this one. So this is the first, and we'll have a second question for you to discuss.